Right.
So yeah, that's about it. And then we could just get to worst stuff because I don't have
Yeah.
anything else.
CC, take it away. Seeing that, I know you're not gonna put, unless you want to surprise us today. I know you're not gonna put like all of your picks aren't gonna be 2024, 2023 films. They're gonna be stuff from like.
Oh no, yeah.
2024.
No. I've only got 5 films on the list this year. 2 of which were actually 2024 releases, and one of those I know is probably going to be on a couple other worst of lists. But like with my best, going in order of release date. So going worst to worst. First off, is a film I finally got around to after hearing its reputation for being quite terrible. And it's not even really a film as much as it is a bastardization of another film, but this is Godzilla, King of the Monsters, from 1956, the American recut of Gojira.
Mm-hmm. From
Now,
54. Right.
I knew this film, I had heard this film was bad. I had heard that, they insert the Steve Martin journalist character, and that it was awkward, and Raymond Burr's character, and that it was awkward and everything. But finally watching it, and I actually double featured it. I watched it with a friend, and we double featured it on the same day we watched Gojira. So we watched Gojira, and then we watched Godzilla, King of the Monsters. And no matter how much I expected it to be bad, it was worse than I was expecting. Mainly because I feel like it really does tone down some of the most horrific elements of Gojira. Gojira is a really stark, really bleak horror movie. I mean, it happens to have a giant monster in it, but, giant monsters can actually be really scary if done right. Whereas Godzilla King of the Monsters softens the full impact of the horror to such a degree that you lose so much of the horror. And on top of that, the attempts to shove Raymond Burr into the movie are actually worse than you'd expect. Because, you imagine there'd be things like, oh, okay, well, if we're going to have a random scene where he attends a press conference in the movie, and we show in a random shot of him there, you would assume that they would try to make the walls match, right? So that it's not blaringly obvious that this guy isn't brand new footage. And no, it's not. I think some of the most egregious are sequences where they try to have him interact with characters that are in the movie, and you see, the backs of their heads or something like that, and it's like, yes, take our word for it that this is the same character that you know from that other scene. And then, of course, and this is probably the most infamous thing about it, is that because his character is a journalist, and because this movie is, and this reminds me of another one on the list that we'll get to, because the whole point of this character is that he's trying to make this movie more palatable or whatever for Americans, and the distributors of this film are assuming that Americans are really stupid, he has to narrate all the horror. It's not enough that we can just see a scene of Godzilla destroying Tokyo. We have to cut to this guy carefully explaining to us how horrifying all of this is in the most flat, monotone, staring off-screen type way. It's truly shocking when you realize that this is a film that has little to no regard for its audience. So yeah, kicking off, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, somehow worse even than I had been led to believe. Number 4 was a film that I have seen before, but it was a film I saw years ago. I was a teenager, and I saw it, and I was like, this film's kind of mediocre. It's whatever. And I revisited it this year because it was around the 4th of July, and I said, oh, okay. I heard this. I don't remember this film being very good, but people talk about it like it's kind of a dumb, fun time, and you kind of strap in and oh yeah, it's so stupid. It's stupid, but it's fun. And I rewatched it. I was again with a group of friends, and we were watching this film as a 4th of July little movie day. And not only is this particular film not fun bad, it is not fun bad. It's not stupid fun. It's not fun bad. It is an actual chore to sit through. And that would be, I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but Roland Emmerich's 2000 film, The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson.
What?
This
wow.
upon revisiting,
it's such a bad like rip-off of Braveheart, and it's still Mel Gibson. Eh?
It's so bad.
Like I like Braveheart. I think Braveheart holds up for the most part.
It does.
Right? Yeah.
That shit just totally feel like they're just trying to capture Braveheart energy and effing it up.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like what Pearl Harbor was to Titanic. Same thing.
Yes.
They try to recapture the same energy and F it, and they totally F it up.
Yeah, it's over the top and it takes itself way too seriously, but
it's so much
I know.
They totally try to American up. They try to American up Braveheart, and it don't work at all.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about the movie's wildly inconsistent tone for a moment, right? Because you get really goofy, kind of almost like cartoony sequences of things like the whole bit where Mel Gibson's character accidentally charms Cornwallis's dogs, and they follow him around now. And isn't this wacky? This is the same movie where you have a scene so horrific that the only documented case of this happening was during World War II, as an actual Nazi atrocity. But the scene where the British round up all the civilians in a church and set it on fire.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
Yes. Which is... It's one of those moments where you're like, movie, what are you trying to accomplish here? Like, I don't mind historical inaccuracy. Like, I mean, I have plenty of films that I quite enjoy. I mean, like, I love Fall of the Roman Empire. But for some reason, when it comes to The Patriot, it's not the inaccuracies. Like, if he wanted to just make a full-blown, action movie, like kind of like big rah America action film, that would be one thing. But the tonal inconsistencies, the film can't decide what it's trying to say about anything really, and then on top of all that, it is punishingly long. And I love long movies. One of my favorite movies is 1900, which is 5 hours. But I found The Patriot an excruciatingly long film, because there's so many moments where it just goes in circles, where it retreads things happening to characters. It can't decide what it's actually trying to say about anything. So, no, The Patriot is not dumb fun. The Patriot is not like a ridiculous little fun time or whatever. The Patriot is just bad. The Patriot is this absolute misfire of a movie. And the weird thing is that I feel like it's kind of colored the way a lot of people think about films of American history, because I remember asking people at one point at one of my workplaces whether they would be interested in a film about the Revolutionary War, because there's not very many of them, and they were like, oh, absolutely not. And they talked about how they just felt it would be like over-the-top American propaganda, and I realized the film they were talking about was The Patriot. So it's not only a bad film, but it's a film that has kind of taken hold of what the public imagines these kind of films can be. Moving on to number 3, middle of the list, and keeping with the vein of historical films, I set myself a very weird... It was one of those ideas I was just thinking about a lot. Maybe I'll write it up as like a blog post or an article or something, but I really got it in my head because this year, 2024, was the 30th anniversary of the Rwandan genocide. Real tragic and real heavy. And I got thinking about it, and I kept thinking about how there's a weird number... Like, there's a lot of films about it. Like, there have actually been, because the big one that most Americans know, fun fact, is Hotel Rwanda.
Right.
I don't know why, but I know a lot of Americans who had to watch Hotel Rwanda in middle school, and that's wild to me, having actually watched it, because, I don't know. But so I got on this whole thing where I was like, okay,
I still think...
Right, yeah, it's blatantly Black Schindler's List, but it's Black Schindler's List, but it's good Black Schindler's List. But... So I did sit down and I went through 4 films and a documentary on this subject of, films about the Rwandan genocide. And I did find the best. But, unfortunately, I did find the worst film about the Rwandan genocide. And I originally, when I was going through this list, I did actually, I wondered about Hotel Rwanda. But, Hotel Rwanda is actually not that bad. It's not my favorite. And there's things about it that I'm not the biggest fan of. But I think it works decently well. But a film that does not work at all, this is from 2005, and it's Shooting Dogs. I don't know if either of you have even heard of it.
Yep.
No. Oh, do you know this one?
All right, if you tell me what the premise is and who stars in it, I'll
I
maybe.
vaguely remember this.
Okay. Wow. Huh.
It had this, and it had the one with Bruce Willis
Or Tears of the Sun.
as his son, which
Yeah.
it should have worked by the work at all.
You know,
Yeah, this was wait, was it was John Hurt was in this?
Yeah, John Hurt plays a priest. So the basic premise is based on real events. John Hurt plays a priest working at a Catholic mission school type place in Rwanda around the time of the genocide. He's got this young, young white assistant guy who's also working, and the two of them, of course, get caught up in the events, and they turn the mission into a safe haven for Tutsis fleeing the Hutu violence. And here's the thing. The white savioriness of it all is not. It's not even quite as egregious as the main problem, which I would say is the white gaze. Let me put it that way, because this is a movie that doesn't. Again, going back to Godzilla, King of the Monsters, this is a film that doesn't trust that you will find what is happening horrifying or sad on your own. It has to tell you that what is happening is sad, which, when we're talking about the Rwandan genocide, is really tone deaf. Like the implication that, oh, if we just present this to audiences, they won't understand this is a terrible thing happening. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure they could understand that this is pretty terrible, actually. Like, the number of times something horrible will happen in this movie, and it will cut to the younger white guy looking really sad and horrified. It's part of the thing where it starts to undermine the whole proceedings in a way that comes across, again, very white savior, very white.
I didn't hate this as much as, here's what, I didn't hate this that much because there's another movie that was incredibly tuned that's around that time, and that kind of still suck up the oxygen for this conversation, which was Crash.
Oh God!
So that's why this didn't I didn't think about this movie as much, but yeah, this movie had that problem. It was like,
this movie is pretty well. It's a pretty and one of the bits about the movie that made me actually sit scratching my head because I'm not sure what it's trying to say. There's a whole bit where the journalist guy. The younger white guy is able to get these journalists to come to the compound and film what's going on, and they're and she's talking about how horrible it all is, but how she hasn't cried or anything. The female journalist, he says, "Oh, I'm sure watching this desensitizes you," and she's like, "No, it's not that. It's worse. When I was over in Bosnia and I was filming all that, and I kept looking at all the bodies, and I kept thinking how there was seeing these murdered women and thinking how they were my mom, and that made me cry. But then here, they're black people. I don't feel the same." Like,
it sounds so forced, man. It's so forced.
It's so forced. Like, again, we'll circle back to this when I get to my best films list, but this has no delicacy. There's no drama. None of the black characters really get to be characters. Pretty awful. Pretty tone deaf. Very lectury. Very white saviory. Very white gazy. Almost as bad is the film Shake Hands with the Devil, based off the documentary and book of the same name. That one is not quite as bad. I mean, it's quite frustrating at times that it's not very well made, but it's got a couple moments in it that I think work really well, and the documentary it's based on is quite excellent. But yeah, not quite as bad as Shooting Dogs. Now we are almost to the end of the list, and we are finally at films that actually came out in 2024. Borderlands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have never played these games. I've heard that they are quite fun. I have never played these games. So I am going into this film just as, just introduce it, just engaging with it as a film, And it is an absolutely incoherent mashup of other films in a way that is so deeply frustrating to me. Like, I don't mind things being derivative. I'm a Tarantino fan, but at the same time with Borderlands, there's nothing I don't know how a film like this manages to not have anything to offer. I mean, and that's not even getting into things like the weird casting that doesn't absolutely work at all. Could someone please explain to me what Kevin Hart is trying to do? I don't know if he's
I
trying to be
know,
funny or
right?
if he's...
Yeah.
Is he trying to be serious? Is he like, I'm not... If you wanted, like, slightly generic... I mean, this is not kind, but it feels like this part was written for Idris Elba, but they couldn't get him. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they wrote his character for Idris Elba and they couldn't get him, so they just got, I don't know, the casting agent to say, what's the next black guy available? Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart,
Let's
yeah.
do that.
Yeah, because he's
goodness.
trying to be super serious at times, like, almost like WTF
Yes.
half the time. But it's Kevin Hart. He's more reaction. He reacts more than actually giving like clever or funny lines. It's just like, oh, this is stupid.
Yes.
Let me talk. Let me just say why this is so stupid.
But like, the plot is, and also I think for a film like this, especially with a film that again directed by Eli Roth, extensively reshot. Eli Roth, which was a baffling decision. Like, Eli Roth, let's be honest for a moment. Eli Roth knows how to phone in a movie. Like, Eli Roth will take a paycheck gig to make his weird little horror films that he actually wants to make. But Eli Roth will absolutely take paycheck gigs, and this feels like the most shallow paycheck gig. I don't know why they didn't just get Tim Miller to start with, because, I mean, the action scenes are kind of fun, except they go on too long, and they're edited in this way like they were shot to be R-rated and then cut down to be like PG-13, which is really weird. And I don't know if anyone else agrees, but this film is also punishingly unfunny. This film is trying so hard to be funny, and it is punishingly it's that kind of master of disguise standing around like, oh, this is a joke, right? I don't even know if I'm uncomfortable enough to laugh about this. Except Jack Black has a couple moments that actually made me chuckle. But for the most part, nothing. Like, I sat there with the most stone face. I was just trying to, I was like, okay, I guess we're in the age of the video game movie blockbuster now, but, and so I'm going in, I'm hoping to have a good time, but no, I'm just sitting there with the absolute, like, the number of times I was like, oh, that was a joke. Oh, they wanted me to laugh at that. Oh no. Also, can we retire the gruff bounty hunter who's tired of this shit trope already?
Oh yeah.
I have never.
That'll be the Kate Blanchett character. Yeah.
Yep. I'm exhausted. I've gotten to the point where I see these types of characters like, oh, I'm not in it to get involved. I'm just in it for the money. I'm like, yeah. Move on. God damn it. Just like, it doesn't. I just roll my eyes at this point. It's so tired. Like, it's amazing that a film that's this colorful, that's based off a video game property, is this tired. But all that being said, we have now gotten to my pick for, of all the films I saw this year, the absolute worst. This is the film that, regardless of when it came out, regardless of anything else, this movie was the worst film I've ever seen. Well, not ever seen. This is the worst film I saw this year, in 2024, and I saw several hundred films, I think, and the worst one of all was Reagan. Directed by Sean.
I didn't see this.
Sean McNamara. Like,
I forget what it's called.
I don't know if anyone. Yeah, and I don't know if anyone else saw this. And just in case any of you at home didn't notice this, but yeah, in the middle of all this, in the middle of this year, amidst all the other stuff going on, there was a Ronald Reagan biopic in theaters, starring, I think, Dennis Quaid.
Yeah.
Wow.
As Ronald Reagan. Yeah. No. So this film's production history is really bananas. So back in the 90s,
for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back in the 90s,
it was developmental held for a while. Yeah.
Oh, it was. Well, back in the 90s, there was this miniseries made about Reagan, starring Josh Brolin's dad, James Brolin as Reagan. There was a producer who didn't like it very much and thought it was too mean to Reagan, essentially. So he wanted to make his own Reagan movie. Now, for a while, he had an angle that I really liked. He really wanted to make a movie that was about Ronald and Nancy's relationship, and he had the guy who made Rocky attached to direct. And that was a promising, that was a promising project. And then he died. And they retooled the Reagan biopic, and instead, and this is the part that really pisses me off, they decided for source material to use the book The Crusader, written by Paul Kengor, a conservative historian. Because, and I cannot believe I have to explain this, but this is kind of what kills the movie in every single way, because both the book The Crusader and the film Reagan have one thesis, which is that Ronald Reagan single-handedly brought down the Soviet Union. Period.
Okay.
Stop.
This is the this is the thesis of this film. And here's the thing: this isn't a biopic of Ronald Reagan. This is a film about how Ronald Reagan brought down the Soviet Union. Like, I kid you not. The film opens with a Russian agent, in like modern day Russia, traveling to the office of a retired KGB agent played by John Voight, and talking about like, if we're going to go after America, we have to figure out how we did it wrong the first time. And the John Voight agent's like, well, you have to understand the man that did it, Ronald. And he's doing, of course, a terrible Russian accent. Like, well, you have to understand, comrade. It's we have to understand the man who did us in, Ronald Reagan.
They gave you actual Russian. Like, just John Voight's a shitty Russian accent. Terrible. God, man.
And here's the thing. The whole movie then presents Ronald Reagan's life and political career through the lens of Ronald Reagan single-handedly defeated the Soviet Union. So his early career in Hollywood, his time, some of his times as an absolute snake, who tried to expose members of the American Communist Party within Hollywood and everything. He was part of
HUAC, if I remember correctly, right? Was he?
Yes, he was. The House. Yes, he reported people to the House of Un-American Activities, which Un-American Activities Committee. Yeah, that's the thing. And the movie, of course, presents this as big and heroic. There's a hilarious sequence where he has one conversation with Dalton Trumbo that they play as a flamboyant gay man for some reason.
Right.
Which is it's that kind of movie. Kevin Sorbo has a cameo as a priest who baptizes Ronald Reagan.
I'm sorry, you had me at Kevin Sorbo.
He like a real right-wing staple for a hot minute now. So
Yeah.
it's like
He is. He is. It's so bad. Like, it's gotten, and it's also weird because if you know anything about Reagan, you know that like his religion is like kind of all over the place. But this movie really wants you to buy into this idea that he was a traditional evangelical Christian, which is
right.
Absolutely baffling. And then, of course, they go into his presidency and they really push this idea that he's single. This movie ignores everything else that any American president ever did in the like Kennedy, Truman, Eisenhower, Dad. None of them did anything against the global communism or the Soviet Union as much as Ronald Reagan did, to say nothing of the fact, and this movie doesn't even acknowledge any of the internal factors that led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. We don't talk about Chernobyl. We don't talk about the Uzbek cotton scandal. Like, none of the internal factors that led to the collapse of the Soviet Union are even addressed. It is all laid at the feet of Ronald Reagan single-handedly defeating communism. And as a result, I don't think the film actually does it. I don't think the film actually does Reagan himself any favors. I think this is one of the saddest things about this film. This film is doing so much legwork to paint Ronald Reagan as the greatest human being to ever live that it actually doesn't really give us a good sense of who this man is. Like, I'm saying this as a writer and as someone who's written historical fiction, and like my master's thesis was a historical film. Ronald Reagan had a very interesting life. and he had very interesting, turbulent relationships, and his life could make a very interesting movie. But you have to
they had to
look
do
at
the puff piece.
Right. This is the puff. Like they have to do the puff piece, and the problem with the puff piece is that that's boring. The movie doesn't even acknowledge his battle with Alzheimer's until the last 20 minutes. The last 20 minutes of this biopic of this man's life, and it doesn't even, or when they finally acknowledge any of the Alzheimer's stuff, and that really is some of the most egregious. I think like the performances are all over the place, mostly because this cast is made up of disgraced actors or people who couldn't get roles in other places or things like that. Or people that have worked with this director before, because I mentioned that name, Sean McNamara.
Right.
He's the guy who made Casper and Wendy, The Sweet Life, the movie,
right,
and Bratz, the movie. Oh, and the Even Stevens movie, lest I forget.
Right,
so, like, this is
a Disney crappy dude.
Yeah, a lot of like kind of low tier types, like low tier type stuff. Nothing really like that substantial. And he's like the thing that's really egregious is that a lot of his behind the scenes talent are people that he brought from those projects. So the film just kind of looks cheap all the time. Like the film looks like kind of like the Disney Channel version of a Ronald Reagan biopic a lot of times. And then you end up with bizarre things like the Wizards of Waverly Place. Older brother plays young Reagan before he gets played by. It's just such a. I think for me the thing that sealed the deal. One of my favorite YouTube videos that I watched this year was a History Channel. Sean Munger did this great video where he broke down the Iran-Contra affair. And and what I love about Sean Munger is he's one of these history YouTubers who, kind of like a lot of the people you were highlighting earlier, will make kind of longer form deep dive videos. And what I like about Munger's video is he breaks down the scandal, he breaks down all the different players, why it was so controversial, and all the different facts of it. He does his best not to, like, pick sides. I mean, he ascribes the blame where it is, and oh my god, there is definitely blame to be ascribed in that fiasco, but like it's not heavy-handed one way or the other. But the thing that I found is that with that context in mind, I was watching this movie, this again biopic of Ronald Reagan. I was like, okay, is this film going to talk about the scandal that almost brought down his presidency? And it did, in the most baffling way possible, because the film accidentally, in a move that truly shocked me, the film accidentally implies that Ronald Reagan did in fact supply arms to the Contras in Nicaragua, knew that was happening, just that that was a good thing.
Right.
We don't know too much about how much.
What they do is basically if that fella didn't get it was basically treason, right? Like whoever.
The film. Oh yeah, no. The film tries to plays this up like this is a good thing, and then of course he gets caught with it, and there's this big moment where Nancy's giving him this whole speech like they're trying to destroy you. You have to retake the narrative, and then. And I cannot stress enough that this happens while the movie is shot and edited. Like this is a big dramatic moment, and it's all the cameras and people looking on in awe and wonder, and the dramatic knockoff Patriot music is swelling in the background. And Ronald Reagan takes to the set and says, "What was the actual voice like? A few months ago, I told the American public I did not trade arms for hostages. My heart and my best intentions still tell me that's true. But the facts and the evidence tell me it is not." And the fact, I mean, this is what he actually said on American TV, but the thing about that is that, that is honestly a confession. It's him admitting, look, America, at the very best, I have no control over my own cabinet. At the worst, I committed war crimes. Please forgive me. But the movie is so committed to being a puff piece that it takes one of the most bold-faced confessions in American history and turns it into a galvanizing, heroic moment. And that was the moment where the movie was never going to recover any respect from me. This is the worst film I have seen all year, and almost hilariously bad if it also wasn't so punishingly long. and so ugly to look at.
Yeah, so now this section is going to be you, Tracy, doing your worst stuff, right? So take it away. You have the floor.
Okay, I'm doing a very short worst of list, and I dedicated it. I was making the joke that I dedicated in terms to Meredith Grey, because every time something happens in Meredith's life, she always responds with seriously, and that is kind of how I feel about some of these films, because you can't get me mildly, moderately, or exceedingly excited about something, and then when I watch it, it becomes bleh. Thankfully, because of everything that was going on with school and all the other randomness that was happening, I didn't get a chance to see a lot of things. So I'm now kind of like devouring a lot more. But here's my wish off, and I'm going to start with Atlas, and that literally falls under the seriously category. Yeah,
I was charitable to it in my review, but at the same time, I was like, but when I saw the name Greg Berlanti, I was like, okay, that's why I look so. Okay, that's why I look so.
But the thing about it is like, I spent, I make the joke in terms of like, I went on Letterboxd and I did a review for it. And in the review, I pretty much spent like about 2 paragraphs talking about, Lana Parrilla. And I'm sure Ambassador, I think it's either Lana Parrilla or Lana Parrilla, who played Jennifer's mom. She was also the evil queen in Once Upon a Time. Like, the story was just very mid, and Jennifer is Jennifer, and I can't really deal with that. I was more interested in Lana than I was in that. And even Simulu being like the robot guy, it was not happening. The next on the list was The Union, which got a major seriously for me because I love spy things and all that kind of randomness. And Halle Berry, Halle Berry is just good. So I just like, okay, let's have more of this. It wasn't like if it was horrifying, it was good, but it wasn't enough. And the fact that I left it feeling very seriously. So that ended up on my worst list. Plus, I really didn't get that whole chemistry of Mark Wahlberg being a long lost, high school lover kind of joke. No, that didn't really fly for me. Not even the action sequences flew for me. So I was like, not that going on a worst list. Damsel is getting a seriously vibes because just no. I just like Millie deserves better. I would rather. And I say this with my whole chest. Make like 6 more Enola Holmes, then leave Netflix and go and do something completely different. So yeah, that is getting a thing. Trigger Warning, which is another Netflix special. Trigger Warning was Jessica Alba, Miss Honey Daniels herself, as like this sort of ex veteran, but she goes back to her small town where her father is killed and goes and does that whole small town justice thing, and it really didn't fly for me. I sat down watching.
Question: Was that her comeback film though? Because I haven't seen anything from her or heard anything from her actually in years.
Here's the thing: I sat there watching that film, and thinking she could be a very good Talia or a new version of Selena Kyle in whatever this new version of DC Studios is. But
who are you talking about? Sorry.
Jessica Alba.
Okay.
Jessica Alba. Honey Daniels now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. That movie will always be ever living to me. But anyhow, so Trigger Warning was it didn't even like the racial undertones, the idea of the double meaning of the trigger warning, because the things that's happening there that would trigger you, and I didn't like it. I didn't feel it. I feel like Jessica deserved better, and this wasn't it. And to round things off, now, admittedly, the movie about the spiders in the Amazon was going to make it on this list, but I kind of decided not to add it fully to this list, not to commit fully to this list, because I just didn't. However, I did put Joker 2, Folie of Deux. That wraps up, because how are you going to move from a tight $55 million budget first film into a $200 million bloated scene that didn't even have some of the scenes that was in the trailer that we were all excited about? How are you going to get Lady Gaga to play a version of Lee, Harley Quinn, but still make it like mid? How is it that a film that got a little over 1 billion in box office sales, the first one, and then you come back around and spend 200 million. And then, like in the interviews and stuff before, because like when the film's coming out, the Variety and THR and Empire always do these spreads with all the things. And I'm listening to Todd talk about people should be glad they're spending 200 million. That means that they could do a lot more. And I'm like, no, that's not it. And then he's talking about, there was an article where he was talking about he wanted to have it as a Broadway musical instead of a film sequel. And I was like, that's not it either.
Yeah.
I would have rathered, I would have rathered that you, as a director, if Todd had decided to make his own film to talk about studio systems and fandoms, instead of trying to feed that into Joker 2, because it is titled Joker, for crying out loud, that would have been a whole lot better than what it is you did there. Like, how the Wachowskis did Resurrections, but they took some major digs at the studio system and Warner Brothers on the whole, that you could almost say, like, okay, they're making a statement about their statement and a statement. I don't get what Todd was necessarily trying to do, except maybe just, aggravate everybody. It's like, that director, and I'll wrap up with this. It's like the director in America's Sweethearts, who was contracted to make one particular type of film and then went off and did his own abusive kind of documentary film on the actors, and everything went to hell. I don't know how this could have happened, and I don't like it. So that rounds off for me my worst of films for 2024. Had I gone to see things like Craven and all the other stuff that was there, it might have been a longer list, but I will wait for that to come out on digital, which I assume will be next week. So that's a thing. But that wraps up for me. Oh, right. Wait. One last thing.
One more thing.
My worst. One more thing. My worst is not inherently just the films, but the entire streaming service as an entity, because you as a streaming service or services, you were supposed to be the chosen one. So could we stop doing these middle-of-the-road movies just because you can, just inflate numbers? Or worse yet, canceling off stories before it even has a time to breathe. And I'm looking at you, Netflix, in terms of chaos and things like that. You were supposed to be better than network television. That was your whole tout. So now that you're here, I don't need you to bring, A and B, supposedly A and B Hollywood actors and turn out a movie a month, and it has no resonance.
Yeah, especially Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Oh my God! I mean, I that's another conversation. But like, just don't. And with that wraps up my worst.
I agree with your number one. Folie Dunce is the worst. To borrow from the late great William Hurt from A History of Violence. How do you fuck that up?
I know, right? Yeah. And just imagine the person that William Hurt is kicking. Imagine that as the movie. The movie is that guy who got his ass washed, right? I will leave it at that. Yeah. So before, Ricardo closes off this section here with his worst of this, right? Allow me to share my top 5 picks for worst movies of the year, right? But I have a couple of dishonorable mentions, and I have a feeling Ricardo have a couple of these two noble failures, right? So I will start things off with noble failures. This came out on Valentine's Day, and I had a choice between a certain film and this one, which actually made it to my noble failures list, and I picked the latter. Because the more I thought about it, and the more, I admire the fact that, they actually put the man, the myth, the legend himself on screen, and were trying their best to do it justice. The mere fact that they just held back so much on his life and whatnot, and just gave us this sort of bare bones portrait as to who he was just like, all right, sorry, like for all the years, and from us from the Caribbean, how we basically idolize this guy, right? We deserve better, right? Not just in the Caribbean, but in the world. Like, if you call yourself a Bob Marley fan, yes, this movie could have been so much better. Yes, talking about Bob Marley, One Love.
Okay, yeah, I forget about this.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this was neither here nor there for me. 'Cause I didn't think it was that bad, but I didn't even consider it a double feeling. It didn't work, but it wasn't worth mentioning. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
like
No.
there was so much they could have given us in it. Well, that's the main thing that they just flat out avoid was just basically showing, yeah, why is he
Yeah.
so revered in Jamaica? It just treats the audience like, oh, you're supposed to know who Bob Marley is. You're supposed to know all the songs. You're supposed to know when he released these tracks and whatnot, and you're supposed to know why he's a big deal. But no, it's a biopic, like the first ever Hollywood biopic you ever gotten of this man. Like, give us the full story. Don't just give us, the last third of his life and just say, well, that's the story, the end. Second noble failure. There's two more to go, right? So second noble failure. This was a film that I really, really, really wanted to like, though. And just given the premise, they could have done so much interesting things with it, but unfortunately, it was just. Okay, you're trying to sell me on this one thing, but it's centered around a character that I'm supposed to feel a kind of way for, even though he's technically a zombie. Yes, noble failure as far as horror movies go in A Violent Nature. Yes, this was the movie where they decided to take the Michael Myers or the Jason Voorhees character and basically just explore him as he goes around from place to place killing people, right? And the whole sell is, wow, isn't his kill so cruel? And, what could cause a person to do all these violent acts? But the point is, it's not a human being. It's basically this revived corpse that's walking around with a weapon killing people. There's no sympathy to be had with this character, right? I get where they're coming from. Right. And I admire the tribute, the tributes basically to 80s, horror films, slasher films basically, especially like really schlocky, independent films, right? Like you would get, right. Just basically unrated films that you would see released through like Arrow Video or Vinegar Syndrome, for example. But just framing it in the context of, okay, we're just seeing this guy who is just basically walking around, saying nothing, killing people, and yes, he had a really fucked up, brutal death in this. That will go down as one of the most brutal, fucked up deaths I've seen in a movie, hands down. But still, you're trying to sell me on the fact that it's this reanimated corpse that's walking around killing people, and I'm just supposed to be like, my God, what is he doing? He has no remorse. Of course he has no remorse. He's not thinking he's dead. That's the point, right? So I get where you're coming from, but they really could have put more thought and effort into really, telling the story, right?
Right.
And last but not least, CC, forgive me and forgive Ricardo. We tried it. Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. I tried it though. I sat down with my cup of coffee though. I sat down. I was really taking it in. I was like, all right, this is weird. Okay, we pivot to this subplot. All right, this is weird. Wow, this thing you're going back to like 2000s, commentary.
It really did work. It really did work.
And then right after the moment, I'll tell you where CC is where Adam Driver nearly gets killed, like the assassination attempt. From there, I don't know why, but they just run through the rest of the story. They just rush everything, and they just had the pause. This end this on this sort of they try to give us this powerful message about, the world and why we need to unite and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just there like, why though? Yeah, I understand at his age, it's like, all right, I really want to get this film out of the way, right? And he had this yes man basically pretty much saying, okay, Francis, all right, you did The Godfather, it's okay. Do your movie, but sometimes you just have to sit back and be like, I could have adapted this in a much better way. Like maybe, I don't know, like I said this in my review, right? Maybe do this as a series, put it out on HBO, flesh the story out a lot more instead of trying to tell me that you're giving me this, story that you work on for 30 plus years and you just pretty much run through a whole bunch of subplots and arcs and whatnot, and half of it don't really make sense. And what I do admire the grandiosity of it all and whatnot, right? Everybody pretty much committed, even though some people really look bad in the process. Shia LaBeouf, I see you. Yeah, it just ultimately came down to look. Sometimes you don't have to like. All right, if you really wanted to get this off your chest, all right, I'll understand. But there's other ways you could go about it. You don't have to just sell us on the fact that it's a Francis Ford Coppola movie, and because for that reason alone you should go and see it. No, it should still.
I love. Here's the thing. I love the movie. I will fully admit that the person that Francis Ford Coppola made it for was Francis Ford Coppola.
Thank you. Yeah, it really does feel like you're making it for yourself. Like, think about your audience, man. You know.
It is the most self-indulgent movie I've seen all year.
Nah, it is. But like what I said, my review, just to wrap up, is like he could have just made this into a series. He could have fleshed out this story a lot more and given us a reason to care about the characters and whatnot. Instead, I just felt like he just ran through the story and just threw a bunch of weird stuff just to be like, oh, this, just to keep us engaged. But no, you could have given us just a better told and fully fleshed out story. But that's not what we got, unfortunately, with Megalopolis, right? But I still admire the effort, even though it is still self-indulgent, right? So, as far as dishonorable mentions go, not going to stay too long with that. A comedy that came out, I believe, in February through Amazon. The Underdoggs. This was Snoop Dogg's attempt at doing basically not the Bad News Bears. Basically the Bad News Bears in a sense, right? But that's true American football, right? I don't know. Snoop Dogg love football, and but the sell of it is that it's a R-rated, football movie involving this kid's football team, right? So yes, you have the kids swearing, right? And on paper, that should be like the most hilarious thing ever. But I'm just watching this saying, no, you're trying way too hard to be edgy and funny. But no, none of this is hilarious at all, right? A majority of the jokes fell flat. When it tried to be dramatic and heartwarming, it just fell flat as well too. But again, I understand where Snoop was coming from with trying to make this film. But look, his love for football aside, this guy just needs better scripts, right? Like they just really could have tightened up the writing. It could have just been a lot smarter, a lot funnier, instead of just being crass and just dumb for the sake of being dumb. Like, sorry. And last dishonorable mention, and I only put this here, right, because while I am not excited for the other films in this series that everybody apparently asked for, it still started off on a bad note, in my opinion. Horizon, An American Saga, Part 1. Good. Yes, Kevin Costner returned to the world of the Western with this, right? But here's the thing, right? And I said this in my review. It really came off as, wow, I know you guys haven't seen a Western in like years, so here's a Western. Look at how Western this is, man. Look at how everything looks and feels, and here's the music. It's like just like a Western, man. Like, you're loving this, right? And yet it's just setup after setup after setup after setup after setup for a bunch of characters with no payoff. It is just a bunch of setups for a bunch of characters, and the show just sort of stops and just says, well, tune in next time to see what happens next. I'm like, what? Really, Kevin Costner? Really? Really, Oscar winner of, Behind Dances with Wolves? That's what you're going to give us in 2024? a near 3-hour movie with nothing but character setups. That's what it is. Just setup after setup after setup and no payoff. And then they had the goal to just end with a montage of, oh, look at what's going to come up next. And what? I'm supposed to be excited by all this? Like, you haven't given me a reason to care. I'm sorry, this was just a terrible way to kick off your cinematic saga. But the reason why I put it as a dishonorable mention is because, hey, we're supposed to get a second one. I know that the first one underperformed at the box office, so I don't know when we're going to get the second one, because we were supposed to get this year, but that didn't come, play off because of, how it performed in the box office, right? But maybe if I rewatch this and then jump into the second one, I'll be like, oh, that's where you're coming from. But sorry, as the beginning of your cinematic saga, nah, this was terrible. This was terrible. Sorry. So yeah. Worst movies.
I found it absolutely baffling because I haven't seen Horizon yet, and I saw all the material for it, and I said, Kevin, this feels like a TV show. Yeah. This feels like a high concept TV show. You can't put this in theaters, Kevin. You can't put something this serialized in theaters. People will not have the patience for part 4.
Yeah. You're right. It really does feel like you're watching a TV series, right? Because yeah, if I treated this part one as like the series premiere, I'd be like, all right, well, I understand, nothing really much happened. But in the next episode that I will see next week, or if I just pull it up afterwards, all right, okay, the setup will make sense. But no, don't give us in a movie form and then tell us, wait till whatever I wrap up production on part 2 and then you'll see what happens next. No, man. Come on, man. Anyway, so worst movies time, right? So I only saw one of these films theatrically, right? The others, one I saw on Netflix and the other 3 I just sought out on digital, right? So number 5, we talked all this stuff about the, what we call it now, the Spider-Man cinematic universe.
Oh, Lord.
What is it?
The Sony Spider-Man universe.
Yeah, the Sony Spider-Man
That's supposedly the official name of it. I just call it SPUM.
Yes, right.
Spider-Man movies without Spider-Man, but the Spider-Man non-Spider-Man Marvel movies.
Yeah. So I'll confess something, right? When I heard, right, that the scum, right, or spum, whatever it is, was done, like Sony just threw up their hands and just surrendered, right, and said, you know what, we're done, right? This was like a day or 2 after Kraven the Hunter came out theatrically. I was almost tempted to watch Kraven the Hunter, just to see, I'll compare it to like when I watched Aquaman 2 last year, right? Like right after Christmas.
Right.
Before Christmas. Like, okay, if that is the end of the DCEU, let me just see how they edit off. And yeah, it was in a whimper, not a bang, right? And I felt like, okay, well, if Kraven the Hunter is going to be the end of that, right? Okay, it was going to be in a whimper too. But I just wanted to see it, like, so I could just sort of go back historically and be like, all right, well, that's how that saga of superhero movies ended. Okay, and I move on my life, right? Fortunately for me, I did not go through the torture of watching that because I saw the first 2 films that came out this year. That was that herald the end of that segment of superhero history. So number 5, Venom: The Last Dance. Yes, this was a show where I was like, I didn't want to see it at cinema, but Ricardo, you saw it and you didn't care for it. And that's exactly how I felt. I did not care for this at all, right? I still say to this day that the first one is one of those shows that if you have nothing to do on a Saturday night, you pull it up, you watch it. It's stupid, it's dumb.
It had a good marketing campaign. It had a good marketing campaign and they get gassed up.
Yeah, and you can laugh at the Eminem song and Venom, right? That was funny, right? That was funny, right? We laughed at that, right? But then Let There Be Carnage came out and that was terrible in my opinion, right? But I would say by comparison, The Last Dance is better than Let There Be Carnage, but no way. It's still a trash movie. I'll tell you why, right? Because it just tries to sell you on the fact that this is the end of the symbiosis between Eddie Brock and Venom. And they're real trying to play it off like, this is going to be your last ride, man, or the last dance. And yes, in case you're wondering, yes, Venom does a dance. And you see it there like, why are we doing this? Why are we butchering a classic disco song for this? I'll say what it is. ABBA's Dancing Queen. I'm just watching this like, why? And then you're giving us a remix on top of it too. Like, why are we doing this, right? But they're really trying to sell you on the fact that this is going to be the end and you should really care. But I'm sorry. Out of this trilogy, I just got a 2-dimensional anti-hero in the form of Venom, a 1-dimensional character in the form of Eddie Brock, right? And sorry, I mean, Tom Hardy, I love Tom Hardy, but 1-dimensional character, right? And you still want me to care. Even when they have the banter, that's the thing that sells the film, when they're talking to each other, right? It was just goofy as hell, right? Even right down to the we are Venom, and I'm supposed to laugh at this shit? And they just give him this plot about, what's the guy's name? Listen, I saw this movie yesterday, right? Yesterday, at the time I was recording this, right? I don't remember the main bad guy that Andy Serkis was voicing, the Venom, the symbiote, Cull, right?
Oh, Lord, no.
Right, right. The symbiote daddy who like trying to find this codex and it's all these other things, right? I'm just watching this and then the final act is just this clusterfuck of like VFX characters just fighting each other and morphing into each other. I'm just watching this like, what? But they had me at a Venom, a symbiote that had, swear to God, flash powers, dog. I see that.
Oh no!
One of the Venoms is a speedster.
All right, you see that? No. But yeah, boy. Yeah, this was a terrible way to end what could have been a promising series of films. But nah, I mean, for what it's worth, the first one was alright, but it's just because of how they hyped the hell out of it back in 2018, right? But yeah, it was for what I still think is a C-tier Spider-Man villain, and they're real trying to sell you off like, oh my god, this is like going to be the coolest thing ever. Alright, yeah, if it was back in the 2000s, if this movie came out in the 2000s, I'd have been like, yeah, cool, yeah, no problem. But nah, in the 2020s, no. I didn't care for this. I didn't care for the trilogy as a whole, boy, and yeah, terrible way to end this trilogy that nobody asked for, right? Number 4, in terms of closing chapters off, right? Compared to the next film that I'll get into, at least this film knew what it was, right? Even though it's trash, right? Yeah.
Oh Lord.
Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver.
Oh no!
I completely forgot about this shit.
Yep. I'll put it like this, and I mentioned this in my review, right? I find myself keep saying this phrase. I mentioned this in my review, right? There's a moment where after the big final battle, right, you're seeing Jaimon Hunsu's character, right, on the ground, right? And he's watching all this stuff because it's this aerial battle that takes place, right? And it's him and his like comrade, right? And they're all cheering. Well, he's not cheering, right? Because he's taking in what's going on. Because it affects him in a different manner, right? So he's not all that happy, right? But everybody around him is like, yeah! And they watch Jaimon Hunsu's character is like, hey you! I forget the character's name. Yeah! And he's cheering at him. And Jaimon being Jaimon is just like, yeah! And then he just sort of looks back and he's back to that stone face look he had from before. That to me sums up Rebel Moon Part 2. It is a bunch of people telling you that what you're seeing is the most incredible, amazing shit ever, and you're watching this and you have like this bland stone look on your face. Nothing about this was appealing or attractive or nothing. It was just bland, derivative, by the numbers, still ripping off Seven Samurai, still ripping off Star Wars, and I'm just seeing all this stuff. I mean, yes, it's a Zack Snyder movie, so the shit look cool. It look cool in some parts, right? But even when they try to give us backstories into characters and real making it out like, oh my god, this is so cool, and all the, of course, you have to have the Zack Snyder slow-mo, so look at this slow-mo, isn't this cool? It's like, nope, I don't care. I don't care for anybody. I don't even care for the villain who still representing these space Nazis. I don't care for anybody in this, right? And then one of the things that people was laughing at, and even I watched this and I found this shit to be so weird. You're getting slow-mo shots of characters cutting wheat.
Yeah.
And it's just done in this, like going back to the Patriot, almost like, it's about the camaraderie of the people, of the villagers, man. They're working together as they're cutting wheat. And it's all done in this super slow, stylized manner. I'm just watching this like, all right, Zach, when you're done, wipe up, wash your hands, throw away the tissue, flush it away, please, because, yeah, we didn't need to see that. Like, we didn't need to see that. I get it, I understand, but again, wash your hands and put the tissue in the toilet bowl and flush that, please. Don't put this in film. No thank you, right? But yeah, Rebel Moon Part 2, yeah. Basically, the end of a trilogy. Sorry, not even trilogy, a duology, which, yeah, nobody would ask for. And in case you're wondering, no, I'm not going to watch the rated R versions, which, yeah,
thank you.
After the fact, no. Sorry, no.
Do you remember when you're talking about the slow-mo villagers harvesting wheat, the thing that immediately leapt to my mind was in the Snyder cut of Justice League when there was that slow-mo of like the sesame flying off the bun during the speedster bit, and I don't know why this is an obsession with Snyder. It's like grain in slow-mo.
I don't know, man. I don't know, right? Number 3, after agree with you, CC, but yeah, while I was not as fortunate as you to see it theatrically, I saw it in my house and did not care for any of the 90 minutes that I pretty much wasted with it. Borderlands. Yes, that is my number 3. Like you, never played the games, but like I said in my review, I came out of it not even knowing what the game is or if it stayed true to the game. And I made this joke, right? Even Halo, a show that we should be like talking about as one of the worst shows of the year, right? You know, even though I didn't even watch anything outside of the series finale, at least that show knew what it was about. Even Rebel Moon knew what it was about, right? It was just, oh, I'm just trying to be this really edgy Star Wars ripoff. What was Borderlands really? Was it Mad Max Fury Road? Was it? What was it really? I'm not sure what it is, right? Like it was trying to be rated R, but it was PG-13. It was trying to be funny, but it wasn't. You're talking about moments with Kevin Hart, right? One that stood out to me, right?
Yes.
Was where they were driving through this area with like these, I don't know, sandworms or some shit like that. And Kevin Hart is telling the Ariana Greenblatt's character, look, roll up the windows. These creatures piss, like they piss into the air, close your windows, right? And she's like, don't tell me what to do. And then she gets sprayed with the piss, like, oh my god, it's in my eyes, like, fuck this movie, yeah? The moment I saw that, I was like, that was it, right? You say you like Jack Black's character. I hated Jack Black's character. He was the robot in it, hated him.
Okay, let me qualify. When I didn't like his character. I just meant that of all the characters, he got a laugh.
Oh, okay.
One, okay, and it was the bit where where like he's doing the scan, or whatever. He's like scanning. That made me laugh.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool, right? But yeah, outside of that, though, talk about identity crisis, right? Is it trying to stay true to the wacky, visual and narrative styles? I assume from the games. I don't know. And then the mere fact that it's from Eli Roth, right? King of edgelordy content, right? I'm just watching. It's like, wow, this is like so toned down from what I know about Eli Roth. I'm not even the biggest fan of his films, right? But yeah, absolute waste of time, pointless. I guess if it came out in the 2000s, we would have laughed at it and call it one of those so bad it's good video game adaptations. But in the 2020s, nobody asked for this, right? So whatever. Number 2, this probably would have been everyone's number 1 pick, right? But the reason why I watched this, Dread, is because, this was the second film to come out on Valentine's Day. And I didn't expect this thing to blow up the way it did, especially with, Chris Stuckman being called out for, why didn't you come out and say that this movie was bad? Oh, you're a turncoat, you're a traitor. Let's make fun of Chris Stuckman now, right? So I told myself, I made a vow by years, and I just had to see what the big deal was, right? And yeah, seeing Madam Web for myself, which is my number 2, I was like,
damn,
wow, all they real hype this movie up though. Like it's bad, eh? Don't get me wrong, it's bad, right? But to call somebody out for not saying that it's bad too is like, really? Like, leave the man alone. Like, and here's the thing, I do absolutely agree where he's coming from, right? It is Sony's fault.
Yes.
It is Sony's fault, true and true. I don't know, like, okay, like the writers were the people behind Morbius, but even if that's the case, right? You could tell that Sony had a hand in how everything played out, right? So, if you allow me, right? So I'll just do this quickly, right? So, brief summary on what this movie is about, right? So, Madam Web's mother, back in the 70s, right, was in the Peruvian rainforest, right, with this guy who will eventually become the villain, right? And they're looking for this not a cult, like this tribe, right, that consists of what I'm gonna call non-Spider-Man. Because the movie goes out of his way to kind of just let you know, look, even though they dress in red and they have the little Spider-Man web thing on the costumes, they are not Spider-Man. Keep that in mind. They are non-Spider-Man, right? So in the process, she get killed, but she was pregnant and she managed to give birth thanks to the non-Spider-Man, and she grows up and she turned out to be Dakota Johnson and whatnot, and she work in ER and all that kind of stuff. So through some circumstances, she have the power to see the past and basically the future, right? And she could see it in like seconds at a time, but eventually she could literally like see it in a multiverse kind of way, right? And then through some circumstances, she runs into 3 teenagers, one of whom is played by Sydney Sweeney, to the point where I was watching this, I was like, wait, that's Sydney Sweeney? Because they're real selling this like they are teenagers, right? But this is how much of a feeler this movie is, right? So they set up, right, that these 3 teenagers will eventually grow up to be non-Spider women all of whom will go up against the main bad guy, who for some reason they never explained, right, have visions of the future of him being killed by these 3 non-spider women, right? And we have Madam Web before she becomes Madam Web, who pretty much like kind of brings them together under her wing, and she saves them because she's seen into the future, so she could see different possibilities, and she eventually stops the bad guy, right? And it all ends now with her basically becoming the Professor X of the group, even right down to her being in a wheelchair because she ended up like she's not in a wheelchair, sorry, she actually seated because she lost her sight, right? Because near the end of the film she lost her sight, right? If you remember from the Spider-Man cartoon, remember she wore glasses or whatnot. I think that's part of her character setup. She's blind or whatever. But yeah, she's blind, and like a Professor X, she's basically guiding these non-spider women, right? So out of that brief summary that I gave, right, what is the main question that should be asked out of what I just said here?
Main question.
Ricardo, you think you know what's the main question? It's an obvious question.
Why?
No, well, outside of why does this movie exist, right? And also how does the villain, how is he able to see this vision of the future?
Oh,
right?
yeah, wait a minute. Wait. Where did he get his powers from? Yeah.
It's never said. It's never said. But you're close. You're close to what the main question is, right?
Wait. Where does she get her powers from?
She gets it basically from nearly surviving. Because she nearly drowned. So when
so it's a she mother,
yeah. So it's through her mom because they use spider venom, like a specific spider that was there. Again, not Spider-Man, so you use like spider venom to before she died and whatnot. So she was able to tap into those powers as because she nearly died now. She's able to tap into that, right? But yeah,
I hate to be picky, but are spiders known for being able to see the future?
No.
Like, is this a thing? Spider venom?
No. I don't know. I don't know. The movie never stops to explain, right? But yeah, the obvious question with this, right? With all this stuff about, Madam Web having to find these 3 girls and save them from. By the way, I forgot to mention the villain is dressed like a non-Spider-Man as well too. But think of it more like Spider-Man 3 Venom mixed with like the first suit that Tom Holland had in Spider-Man Homecoming. But keep in mind, he's not Spider-Man, but basically they try to make him like a Terminator character. So there's literally a moment where he survives an explosion and he comes out of the vehicle like a Terminator. Like this truck blows up and then he comes out like in the first fucking Terminator movie, right? Whatever. But yeah, the obvious question is, right? How the fuck did girls get spider powers in the first place? No, they never explain. They just say, eventually they will have these powers. And then the movie ends in this real goofy ass way where you see them in the future with their costumes on and you see Madam Web with your costume on. But they're like, how these girls get powers in the first place? They never explain it. It's just convenient how they all kind of team up together there, right? And the movie never stopped to explain this, right? Again, going back to Sony, they assume that you're supposed to be excited as all hell to see what happens next, but we're not going to get that, right? But yeah, overall...
Oh no, it's Kevin Costner and Horizon all over again.
It is, boy. It is, right? But overall, as a wrap up here, the main problem, my takeaway with Madam Web, Joe, is just how pathetic it all is, right? It's trying to tell you folks that this is not Spider-Man, but you still want to connect it to Spider-Man. So you want to have like a Spider-Man, tribe, but it's not Spider-Man. You want to have a Spider-Man villain, but it's not Venom. And, the girl gets her powers through Spider-Man Venom, but it's not Venom neither. And it's like... Nobody cares. It's all meant to connect to the MCU Spider-Man, but you're just too chicken shit to admit it. Stop it now. Just stop it, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I just watched this, and it was just so goddamn pathetic, right? But, boy, people real hype this thing out to be like the absolute worst show ever, and like it was so fun to laugh at it. No, it's just a forgettable-ass movie, right? So, yeah, that is what it is. The movie that should be regarded as the worst film of the year, in my opinion, is a little film that I was genuinely excited for, because even though I didn't ask for a sequel for this, I was like, okay, we're getting one. All right, this looks cool. All right, we're using this genre for this. All right. But I love the first film. I actually have that as one of my favorite films of the past decade. okay, what could go wrong? Joker Folie do. That's what went wrong. That is my pick for worst movie of 2024.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yep.
As a sequel, it does not work. As a musical, it fails miserably. You could tell that, oh, well, Todd Phillips, I love musicals. No, you don't know shit about musicals, bro. Like, the musical numbers just kind of come and go when they're there, but you're just like, why is it in the movie? And poor Lady Gaga, boy. Poor Lady Gaga. She's not even given much to do as far as a singer and as far as an actress goes. She just sidelined to just being this fangirl for Joker, boy, and talk about just wearing down a character, dude. Just pretty much pussyfying, if you will, Arthur Fletcher. Cause yeah, for a majority of the time, he's just all morose and sad, like, oh, I'm on trial, and oh my god, and all that kind of stuff, right? And yes, okay, they'll set up something here with him falling in love with Harley Quinn, but they don't even do much with that. And what they just do with him near the end of the movie, boy, was just like, wow, like really? That's what you could do? You could really have the fangirl turn on him and eventually he get shanked in prison. That's how you end your thing, But yeah, clearly Todd Phillips didn't want to even do the sequel, right? I don't understand. It's Matrix Resurrections all over again, right? But even if he didn't want to see that, at least he could have put a bigger effort into telling a story that makes sense instead of just, okay, like, we want to do edgelordy Joker again, but we don't want to run into the issue of, right, the quotes, that, this is for incels. We basically telling incels that, yeah, Arthur Fleck is a hero. Like, no, like, who cares? If you misinterpret the message of the first film, if there was a message, then that's your problem. Nobody cares, right? But you're afraid you want to do it, but at the same time, you don't want to do it again, because you don't want to spark controversy. So you just water down your character, and it just ultimately just boil down into this pointless 2.5 hour slog that, yes, I had the misfortune of seeing in theaters, right? But yeah, not much more I could say. No, Ricardo, you could tear into this movie even further when you get to your worst stuff, sorry. But yeah, hands down, worst film of the year, biggest disappointment of the year, in my opinion, by, wow, nobody needed this, right? Nobody needed this.
I have a question. How do you respond? Because I've been seeing this grow, I opened this up to either of you. Because at the time that we did the episode about it, I feel like the consensus was pretty clear this movie is terrible. But since then, in the months since then, now there's this weird, if the movie is bad on purpose, the movie is secretly good take that's been growing on the internet. How do you respond to that?
All right. I cannot say that it's bad on purpose. Like if it was bad on purpose, it might as well just be a comedy. You know what I mean? For what it is, right?
Right.
But one
it's
point
still bad.
But it's still bad, right? So,
Right.
but
It's still bad.
I understand if some people like it, right? So, case in point, quite recently, Quentin Tarantino was talking about how he got involved. Like, he was basically like cursing all these people, saying, how could you like Joker Folie do? It's like, yo, I love the fucking movie. If you don't like it, or you don't love the fact that I love this movie, then fuck you, right? Sorry, he liked it, right? If you don't like the fact that I like the movie, then fuck you, right? But yeah, I mean, to each his own, right? But I just talking about it just being what it is, right? It's a sequel that nobody asked for. Why is it a musical? I don't know. Why couldn't it just focus on Harvey Dent instead of just having him just be this blink and you miss a character? Why they couldn't do much with Harley Quinn? Why they couldn't do the whole romance or lovers on the run thing that they hinted at with the first trailer? They just kind of just took everything that we expected and just threw everything away and just say, fuck it, this is what it's gonna be. Just shooting down every single expectation you had with that first trailer. Okay, yeah, when I first saw the first trailer, I was like, all right, this could be great, right? And yeah, they just shot every single expectation with this, man. So yeah, worst film of the year in my opinion, right? But again, if you like the film, like it. I mean, I'm not here to tell you what to like, but I hated every minute of this, right? So yeah, last but not least, Ricardo, your worst stuff, if you have any dishonorable mentions and if you have any noble failures, yeah, take it away.
Yeah, I don't really have any, me didn't spend too much energy on any dishonorable mentions or noble failures or anything like that. I just have my worst movies straightforward.
Alright.
Well, there's one TV series that don't work for me. The Acolyte didn't work.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah.
And I didn't get into the national titan and hand wringing on the internet. It's half of our story. That's the problem. But all of that, it was still bad, and it was half of a story that didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hellboy, the Hellboy that came out this year. That kind of stuff.
Or the Crooked Man. Yeah.
Crooked Man, yeah.
Oof,
That's kind of that didn't work. Y2K. I was kind of hyped for this, and this was so bad. Like,
Wow.
I thought it
really?
would be funny. I thought it would be
all-
like, all right.
And fun fact, we're actually getting this around Christmas time, so it's like near the end of the year. But
Yeah.
I've been hearing bad things about it though. But
But I
yeah,
think
wow.
it's two things. I thought one, given the premise, I thought it would have been clever. Like, you're doing something millennial shit, make it funny, and you make a bunch of cool references. But also, that is Kyle Mooney, somebody who
Yeah.
generally I think funny, and he just fuck this up, Jude. Yeah. Well, I kind of put in all of them in one boat, in one basket, and throw it down the river.
Okay, I thought you was gonna like put them on a boat and do like in Thor 2 and shoot flame tipped arrows and watch it burn as it goes off as it goes off a waterfall, I think it was. And
but every SSU for this, all the SSU movies, right? The Spawn movies, right? So
Yeah.
Craven, I didn't see Craven, so that's fair. But I think I heard Craven as bad as Madam Web and Venom 3.
But you saw Madam Web, right? Because I thought you were skipping it. Okay.
No, I saw Madam Web.
All right. Well, what you thought this in a nutshell about how bad Madam Web was?
Yeah, it was bad. It was just like a waste of time. Like, I don't know what you're thinking. It's a big Pepsi ad for some reason at some point. Like, it's just a mess. They waste my time. I really like stop using brain power on this nonsense. Enough. This one I almost thought I thought this didn't come out this year, and I had to go back because it kind of pissed me off a little bit. Argylle, fuck yourself. Argylle.
Oh yeah, I was almost
wow. That was Argylle. Kind of felt like the first bad movie of the year.
It was
in a way.
Argylle, again. Here's the thing with these movies. The reason I put it as worse is more like not objective worse, but expectation.
Yeah.
The director.
Okay.
Like
Matthew Vaughn, come on, Kingsman, come on.
Yeah, big time director to give me that bullshit boy now. And then, of course, the final movie, the worst movie of the year for me, in my opinion, Joker Folie at Dunce.
Yes.
This movie was fully Dunce. It just was like all the wrong calls for something like this. I get it was trying to be all cynical and burn down its own house kind of mindset for it, but like, no, you don't need to make this. Just don't make the movie. Like, whatever. Moving on. I have no sort of energy for this kind of stuff to like waste my time on worse stuff and worse this because like enough. And then even though I don't think this is the objectively worst movie, but it's my last mention. Yeah, Megalopolis.
Boy, I knew it.
Megalopolis didn't work. Did not work. I get what he was going for. It had some kind of interesting ideas at parts, but boy, it's just the baffling like production approach to all of these things. Like just it had one scene that just it kind of shot okay, and then another scene that's just the worst CG ever you've seen in your life, and it just felt like a whole unfinished mess of a movie that just don't work. It as used this as a disparaging term, but like the what I call student film nonsense now. It feel like that at parts. It really feel like that at parts. Like it had the part where it's a one take and she talking to him and it's the worst dialogue ever. But he have like this book. He have this book and he decided to put the book in focus for a second and then put it out of focus again. And like why? The book relevant something and none of it works. None of it comes together particularly well. Again, a couple of shots, a couple of moments that alright, but overall it's a kind of a mess and like yeah boy, Coppola nah boy.